Welcome back to the Around the Wheel podcast, and this time a video cast as well. I'm going to try something new for 2026. So if you've been listening to the Around the Wheel podcast over the years, you'll know that I've kind of had a long break. And the reason is that I don't want to change the format, or at least the objective of what the podcast was all about. The podcast is supposed to be about answering questions that I get on a regular basis, either through the website or in person, or people that send me messages on Facebook, and just to address those. What I'm going to change is that instead of trying to find a person who's willing to do a podcast with me, to coordinate schedules, to make sure they have a mic, to make sure that they have enough Wi-Fi to do it, and then record it, edit it, and post it out to you, which, as you all know, if you've been following the channel for a while, it's difficult to get all that to work out. So for 2026, I'm going to do two things new. One, I'm going to eliminate the need to have a guest for every single podcast, and I'm just going to jump into it and basically making it a rant cast instead and talking about whatever the question or subject is. If I get guests, that's going to be awesome, but if not, I can keep moving forward and serving all of you that are listening or watching this podcast with good information. So that's one thing I'm definitely going to do. And the other one is I'm going to add video. So this will allow me to put more content out on YouTube so that those that want to watch or listen to podcasts on the YouTube, that you have that option as well. So we'll both be posting on a sound platform so you can listen, and I'll be putting up on YouTube as well. I'll start by using the regular channel, and if you guys all prefer, then I'll open a second channel that's just dedicated to the podcast. So we'll see how that goes and how many people want to follow over if I go ahead and do that. Today's question comes from a rider who's looking to take a class with me, Kevin, and Kevin's got some pretty specific tire questions. Now, I've done several videos on tires. I've also done several podcasts on tires. So I'm going to try to not rehash all the choices of tire size and why we'd make all those. I'm just going to try to focus on his question specifically. Here we go. Here's the email that Kevin sent to me. Bret, thank you for your channel. Love your content. I'm planning on attending your class in Virginia or Georgia in 2026. I have lots of road experience and limited fire roads off pavement experience. I do 500 to 1,000 miles per month on my 900 GS and another 2,000 per month on my 1,300 GSA. Does commuting and long day trips. I'm looking to improve my off-road skills as well as my technical off-road skills. BDRs, and more fun day trips. I'm 5'8" with a 31-inch inseam. I weigh 165 pounds before gear, and he always wears gear. I'm not aggressive while road riding. I rarely exceed 35 degrees and typically keep the bike in rain mode to preserve the rear. Which tires would you recommend for max learning but decent road longevity? He's looking for 5,000 to 6,000 miles for the tires. Based on your videos, I was thinking the Anakee Wild Front and Motaz Tractionator Adventure or Radial Z rear. What are your thoughts? What are your suggestions? Thanks again for your content and look forward to your thoughts. Respectfully, Kevin. So there are several elements to look at as I answer these questions, and this is important to point out. If you send me a question, if you want an answer, I really do need details. And Kevin has defined what he means by technical off-road skills, talking about backcountry discovery routes and BDRs. It's clear he's an East Coast guy, because he's looking at Virginia and Georgia, and the riding on the East Coast is different than the West Coast. So that might make a tire difference. He's also described his road riding and talking about 35 degrees, which is actually pretty good on the pavement, but also mentions leaving the tire in rain mode to preserve the rear, which gives me some idea of kind of the comfort level and slip and slide and where he is as a rider, which sounds like it's pretty typical experienced road rider coming to the dirt. As an instructor, I find it's really easy for me to take a dirt rider and make them a fantastic road rider, but it is very difficult to take a good an excellent street rider and make them a good dirt rider. I think to answer the question for Kevin, I'm going to start off by explaining why he's come to the conclusion that the Anakee Wild front paired with the Motaz on the rear of either an Adventure or a Radial is something that I would recommend. And that's because it's what I'm currently running on my GS. That is my primary bike. And that bike is set up with a wheel set similar to his 900. In fact, the exact same wheel set that's on his 900 GS. So I run a 21-inch front and I run a narrow rim, narrower than stock, with a 150 on the rear, so a smaller tire. And that'll make some difference on when I choose tread patterns and why I chose particular tires, but I'll come back just a little bit to that. So the reason that I chose that tire set this time on my motorcycle, and keep in mind I've used a lot, the Shinko 804, 805, I've used a lot. It's a great budget tire. It's a good performer overall. I've used the Kenda Big Blocks, TKC 80s, Dunlop Missions. I've run all kinds of different tires, and it really depends on the mission of what I want those tires to do for me. Also, you'll notice that there are two different brands and models that I have front and rear. I personally focus on what do I want the front tire to do, what do I want the rear tire to do, and I buy the tire that does that. I do not care if I mix up radials and bias ply. On a motorcycle, that's perfectly acceptable and you can do that. Do not do that on your car or on your truck, because when a radial and a bias ply drive down the road, they will actually change circumference and become slightly different the way they act, causing that vehicle to potentially become unstable. On a motorcycle, it's an in-track, so the front and the rear are independent. It really does not matter. If you look at a lot of the OEMs, what you buy the bike with on those rims from the factory or from the dealership often mix bias ply and radial. So it's perfectly okay to do that. So for me, on the front of my GS, what I'm looking for is I wanted a tire that had good, not maximum, but a good or a dirt bias on the performance. I ride on the West Coast. I have a lot of rock, I have a lot of sand, we have potential for dirt and mud, huge amounts of public lands, opportunities to go high speed, really as fast as we want to go. If we want to do 100 on the dirt, that's a possibility, right? That's something we can do. And on the East Coast, that's not necessarily going to be something that's an option for you. So that Anakee Wild, which is produced in Thailand, same as the Motaz, the Anakee Wild is a decent road performer. It's a little bit noisy. You feel a little bit of movement with all those small knobs, but those small edges and that number of knobs gives me a lot of bite. There's a lot of edges to grab. It runs around 8 millimeters deep. That puts it on the deep side of average for an adventure tire for depth on the front, but that gives me how much volume when that tire gets pressed in the ground, how much can it grab and hold on to. And because it's a front tire, the Anakee Wilds wear out really fast, but the front tires, they last pretty well. It's the rears that melt, the fronts, they hold up pretty well. That gives me a tire that does good performance on the road as far as traction goes and handling. It performs better than it appears because it has a lot of bite on the front. And that's why I chose the Anakee Wild this time around. It is a bias ply. The rear tire is the Motaz, and for me, I have the Adventure. The Adventure has a slightly tighter traction block pattern than the Radial Z, which has an offset and larger gap. And the reason I was going for that one is, again, on the West Coast, I have a lot of opportunity for hard rocks and deep sand and soft surfaces. And I was looking for volume when that tire presses into soft surface. The Motaz are some of the deepest, if not the deepest tire that I've ever measured for an adventure tire. It's almost 15 millimeters deep. That means when that tire presses into the ground, there's a lot of surface area that it can grab a hold of to give me traction. It also has a fair number of edges, but mostly I have that volume, I have that press. As a comparison, the average adventure knob tire, 50/50 or better, is somewhere around 8 to 11 millimeters deep. And that means that it is substantially deeper than most. It is a bias ply, which gives a very stiff sidewall. It gives me good protection on impact. It carries the heavy load since it's on a GS. And but the tire itself is pretty hard compound. The advantage is it's going to hold up in all that rock and all that hard surface that I'm riding through. Because the tire is really deep, there's a lot of material there. It's going to last a lot longer. Also, the Motaz are generally oversized tires, so you're already getting a bigger tire than the sizing that it's posted on the side of the tire. But the downside is that Motaz is also going to last a long time because that compound is hard. It's a heavy tire and it's hard compound. It's going to last, but when it's cold, if it's wet, I'm paying attention. And I've definitely had that tire slip and slide in places where other tires, for example, if I was running the Anakee Wild on the rear, I would trust that tire much more in cold and wet environments on pavement than I would the Tractionator, the Motaz. But it's not going to have the life, and it's not going to have the depth to press it and have that volume grab that I'm looking for. That's why I chose those two models on my bike. Is it the right tire for Kevin? Kevin is looking to take a class in Georgia, Virginia. He wants to do BDRs. He wants better skills. He's a conservative rider and obviously new to the dirt environment. How we define his objectives in learning might make a difference, specifically on that rear tire. As a street rider, we are often very uncomfortable with the bike moving. We don't want it to slip. We don't want it to slide. We don't want it to wiggle. We're not used to feeling that because the movements on the pavement are very small and imperceivable by most riders compared to the off-road. And if he's looking for a confidence builder, a booster, the ability to come out and do a class with me and feel like he's in control, then absolutely having that maximum off-road grip type of tire, running that Motaz on the rear and the Anakee Wild or something similar on the front, is going to potentially give him a much higher level of confidence. The other advantage is, if the tire doesn't slip and slide, you're less likely to have errors where the bike falls over. That means you're not going to pick up your bike as often, you're not going to be as exhausted, and you can focus that energy towards learning and developing as a rider. So that may be a worthwhile goal, and in that case, I would say, Kevin, great choice of tires, works for me, it's going to work for you. If he wants to get over that loose, he's concerned about slip. And the fact he leaves it in rain mode when he's on the pavement tells me he's not really concerned. He is concerned and he's not comfortable with having tires slip. In that case, sliding the tire, having a tire that moves around a little more, but without the ultimate failure of falling over, might be beneficial in the learning process. And this is going to I would have to ask Kevin some more questions to find this out. But having a bike that can slide some is good. If we're going to practice braking and we want the back end to break free, or we want to steer with the rear, then having a rear tire with a little less bite might actually give him an advantage. And I don't mean a lot less, like going to a mission where it's going to slip around like a street tire, but maybe just dialing it back to like a Continental Tkacs 80 or a Kenda Big Block or something in that category where you still have good off-road traction, but not so extreme. And that might give him a little more slip and slide and still help him even if the weather's not ideal. So the question is that tire overkill? Is the Motaz overkill for him? Maybe, maybe not. Now, The other thing to consider here is because he's on the East Coast, he does a lot of street work, he does a lot of gravel, he doesn't have a lot of public lands, then is he looking for a tire strictly for the training, or how much does he want that tire to perform in those other environments, and is it an overkill situation? So definitely something to keep in mind there. Now, Georgia and Virginia are going to be very different learning environments. This also might make a difference in what tire Kevin chooses. In Georgia, I have 500 acres of dedicated private ORV riding mecca. We have double track trails, single track trails, motocross tracks, trials tracks, flatland areas. We have all of this. It is fantastic, but also we're in North Georgia, and if it rains, we have Georgia mud. In that case, you cannot have too much tire, and that would make a huge difference. So if I was watching the weather and he hadn't made the choice and it looked like we might get rain, I would absolutely tire up to the max going to Georgia. In Virginia, on the other hand, that is more dirt. So we do get soft, we do get slick, we have grass, we have soft dirt. And if it rains, you're going to know that. But it's an environment where it's more forgiving. We can dial things back. We can do things in different ways. It's not clay. It's not going to pack up. And having a tire that is not as extreme might be just as good there. So having that TKC 80, having that Kenda Big Block, having a Shinko 805 on the rear are all certainly very good options as well. And even in Virginia, if he had a 70-30 tire specifically on the rear, that wouldn't really be a huge problem. On the front, I would still run something with more knob, so that he has less chance of tucking the front end. That's a bigger issue. I don't mind people falling over while they're training with me. I do have a problem when people are out crashing and training with me. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt your bike. I want people to lead with confidence and higher skill sets. So there's a fine line between challenge and going the other direction. As far as the mileage goes with Kevin, there's a lot of options. The front tire is not going to be a big deal. Most of these tires are going to get the mileage he's looking at on the front. It's the rear that's going to matter. 5,000 to 6,000 miles. For street miles, you can do that with almost any knob tire out there. Is going to make that 5,000 to 6,000 mile range. What's really going to matter is when that tire wears out for the pavement. There's a slightly different way we scale a tire for off-road versus on-road. Off-road, we're looking for depth of the tire, and we're looking for how sharp those edges are. That's what gives us that grip. And softer tires are going to wear that out long before they lose depth. For the road, you're really just looking, have you squared off the tire? Does it affect the handling negatively? And then are you past that rain groove? And they're going to be long past their off-road life before you run out of pavement life. So that 5,000 to 6,000 mile range really depends whether he's talking dirt life or street life. If he's talking dirt life, 5 to 6 is a lot of miles. And having something like the Motaz is a good choice. If he's looking at street miles, then almost any tire is going to make that. So there he goes, guys. There's a very specific question about two tires that are different brands on whether it was a good mix for him. Hopefully, this has helped you kind of think about how do you think through that process of what tire is going to be best for me. Is it okay to mix radials? Is it okay to mix brands? The answer is yes on both. You might even consider things such as weight. He's 165 pounds. That Motaz is a very stiff tire. He's going to have to air down to allow that tire to generate heat and to flex ways that'll make it more comfortable for him to ride, to give him good traction. Whereas if he's running something like a Tkc 80, they're very soft-walled tires. He can run that tire and probably have a more comfortable ride and not have to modify tire pressures as much to make those goals. So things like weight and things do make a difference on the tires that you have. If you like this new format, if you like having a rambling, podcast where I just talk on incessantly about little details, then please let me know. Leave it in the comments for the podcast or for the video, whichever platform you're watching this on. If you have a different format that you would think would be more useful for you, or a different way to organize it, then please let me know. This is new for me in 2026. Trying to put out more content for all of you guys, something you can use. This is a teaching channel. It's a teaching podcast. And I want you to be able to take something away that you can use every single time, even if the exact subject or the lines in the subject aren't what you're interested in. But hopefully the process to get to the answer gets you to where you need to be. Remember, smile while you ride, because attitude matters.